Thanks everybody, great to be here. It's my second time here, and as I was just introduced, my name's Gibbs-Hall, and I'm hopefully going to talk very little right now. I'm going to tee up a situation, and then I'm going to step out of the way and let you test something that I built. And I actually shared it last year for the first time, and I'm eternally grateful to Angela for giving me the chance to use this lab as a lab. I didn't know what it was. I'm still trying to figure out what this thing is, and I need your help to see how it works, what it does, and if it can do something for our group. So, the title of this presentation is The Decision Beneath the Decision. And I'm hoping it can address, the intent is for it to address a lot of what we already heard this morning. There's very little that I can add that Chris and Vinaz have already said to add anything else to it, but we need to move forward somehow. I think we've heard a lot of incredibly useful frameworks and ideologies and content, and trying to use that to move forward tangibly, I think is really tough if we don't talk about this piece when it comes to deciding what to do next. So before we get into everything, I want us to start high level. When that contrast does not work. Starting with your why. What are we here to build? That doesn't work at all. So what are we here to build? Thinking about workspaces, thinking about making work for us, work for your employees, work for your clients. What does work better, or what does better work look like for you? Share it out loud, think about it. It gets tough for me to picture this, because I picture authenticity, belonging, equity, diversity. But imagining how that shows up day to day gets difficult. I get so focused on what doesn't work. Thinking about how can people actually be themselves and thrive and be happy is something I want to make sure we're good at. Sit with that, hold it, and then think of all the stuff that isn't working. It feels like our current situation, at least I don't want to say our, too generally or too broadly, but consistent themes that I've seen is productivity without measurable output. Our calendars can be full and yet nothing gets done at the end of the week. Too many meetings, should have been an email. Too much finger pointing when you're trying to do the right thing, or saying the obvious pattern that you see and you treat it as the difficult one. And Zoom, connection through squares, and I'm just tired of Zoom. And to quote Angela, like, this is work, but if something's happening in the world, it's happening at work. So this is how things show up, but beneath all of that, I feel like there's a lot more existential threats and problems and situations that we're facing that show up constantly. For me, it's isolation or loneliness, and not just like being by yourself, but being in a room surrounded by people and still feeling painfully alone. There's the constant threat of AI. It's one of the key things of this, and not just like, well, how can we use it, how can it be beneficial, but how will it replace us? But honestly, thank you so much for naming all that really uncomfortable stuff that I do every day. If I have 3 extra hours during the day, who am I? What does that mean? And you're trying to figure all this out with the looming threat of what happens if you don't perform? What happens if people don't see what you're seeing and you have to pack up and leave? Or if a decision that you make leads to someone losing their jobs. All the while, we got to maintain profitability. We got to maximize shareholder value, despite not actually delivering value and just moving around numbers to make sure a spreadsheet looks better. So, in this current situation, and you can share it out loud or you can sit on it, what feels heavier than it used to? What's become increasingly difficult that we need to move through? So as we're thinking about those, about what makes things more difficult, my big question for all of us, and myself included, is how on earth do we move forward? There's been so much useful content here, so many projects, activities, ways to connect, fantastic people to meet, but like, what do we do next? And the title of this talk, this presentation, is The Decision Beneath the Decision. It's not what move are you going to make, but this moment, before anything actually happens, what are you deciding that moment is? Because perspective is reality. A lot of us can be in the same situation. We can look at the same next step, but just like we're watching a movie, we're all seeing something different based on how we believe that situation to be. I don't know about any of you, I am terrible with scary movies. I usually do this, I'll put a sweatshirt over my eyes. So the fact that this looks scary and some people are calm blows my mind. or that the person I care about most in the world loves. Gosh, she's trying to get me to watch Midsummer constantly, and I won't do it. I don't know how it breaks her joy, but same movie, different situation. I don't want to do that. I've had too much trauma or unacknowledged something in my past where that doesn't bring me anything that I want to do. But it's this that I want to focus on, because we're all in the same place right now. We've been hearing the same talks, but we're all seeing it differently. And just like we heard this morning, which I won't, it's tough to not repeat both what Chris and Vanessa shared. There's a layer underneath every space that we're in that I feel goes unaddressed. And if I go back to the title of everything I'm doing, this word means everything to me. It's sonder. Sonder is the profound realization that every person you see, everyone in this room, everyone outside, every face in a crowd, every person walking on the street, every opponent on the other side, is living a life that's just as complex as your own. And the fact that we are staying superficial, that we're focusing on handshakes, that we greet each other with, "How are you?" and the response is, "Good," and that's it, is devastating to me. So, let's talk about this. How are we seeing the situation? How can we find a way to surface that and use it and relate to each other based on what's similar instead of what's different? And make sure, are we actually seeing the same problem? Because every decision that I've seen, in every room that I've been in, with people who are paid way more money than me despite not doing as much work as I'm sure all of us do, we're all making different meaning of that sort of situation. Depending on how you see what that next move is, you could be terrified. You could be trying to survive and make sure that you aren't packing yourself up in a cardboard box. You could be clear and calm and know exactly what to do. You could be numb and just try to get through the day despite everything else that's happening in your life. So making sure that we can surface this in some way before we move forward, at least my theory or my hypothesis right now is like, that's critical. We need some way to do that. Because before any decision that we make, there is a decision of what does this moment mean? And until we surface that meaning, until we surface the lens of how each of us sees and what each moment means to us, we're just going to keep producing the same shit over and over again, as we've heard here. So my question is, what are we missing? And what happens if we can actually see each other? What if the key to better decision making, the key to moving forward, isn't more options, but visibility? Actually seeing the uncomfortable stuff that we shove under the rug constantly. Talking about what happened earlier today. Talking about what makes us uncomfortable, what we're scared of, what we hope to gain, what we don't know, what we hope to know. All of it. So, my question to try to bring us forward and make sure that we have something tangible, or at least might have something tangible we can take moving forward, is I'd like for us to address this question, which is, what's the first commitment we must make to move forward? Or first commitment you must make to move forward? And to do this, we're going to try something if you're willing to. So last year, I brought in a piece of technology that has consumed me for the last 6 years. And I tested it here, and something really weird happened, in that it worked. I think like many of us in this room have been focused on like perfection, and I just spent all this time tweaking every word, every syllable, all that to be like, okay, it's gotta be perfect. And it came here and it wasn't, and it worked. It wasn't perfect, it didn't get everybody, but some people cried, which was weird, but that was scary. And I just want to keep chasing it. So this is the next iteration. So if you're willing to, we're gonna move around a lot. We're gonna reorganize this whole room to try to answer this question based on how you see this question, based on who you are. So if you're willing to pull out your phones, you do not have to, but please do. Scan this QR code. It's gonna bring you to something that I've been working on for the last 2 years. It is a perspective, reflection, and decision orientation system. It is self-awareness on demand. Spotify for emotional state. Some other tagline I'm still trying to think of. But the goal is to show your lived experience underneath what you're feeling. To help you separate what's happening from what you're experiencing. To help give you agency without telling you what to do. So you can move forward without having someone giving you all the answers. So it should bring you to a page that'll say like welcome to Access or something, and there should be a login. Your username is Axis, A-X-I-S, and your password is welcome, with a capital W, exclamation point, 2026. Before you jump into this, I'm going to try to make sure we're all at least somewhat on the same page. I go back to here and ask, how do we move forward? I want you to imagine moving forward. Imagine making a decision to move that chess piece, to tell your client something, to tell your boss something, to move your organization forward. Before you do that, there's a moment of stillness, pause, where you get to decide, or have to decide, what that moment means. I feel that too many of us have, for too long, haven't been able to decide what that moment is. We're forced to make decisions based on what others believe it to be. Decisions rooted in urgency and fear and scarcity and just get it right this time. There's no room for mistakes. If you can separate yourself from that, I'm trying to think, leaving the culture impact lab, 2026, what do you want to do? Pause. Check in with yourself, and then go on your phones. The goal of this tech isn't to help you be hooked to it. There is no AI involved. It is trying to reflect your inner experience back to you when you think about what do we do when we leave here. So take 3 to 5 minutes. At some point you're going to get to, it's like some yellow cards that will try to reflect how you're feeling or what it's like to be you back to you. If it works, great. If it doesn't, great, let me know. But at some point you're going to get a confirmation page. Once you get there, please pause, and we'll keep going. Take 2 minutes.